Hi everyone, this is Gracie from Pittsburgh Crochet Company. Today I'm teaching you how to make some little hearts that you can string onto a garland. So first, the things you need to know for this: you need to know how to make a slip knot, grab your 5.5mm hook, and you need to know how to chain. So I'll demonstrate that here. So next you need to know how to half double crochet. So that's yarn over, insert your hook, pull up a loop, and then you're going to yarn over again and pull through all 3 of those loops on your hook. So I'll demonstrate that a couple more times here. So next up is the double crochet. We start the same, yarn over, insert hook, pull up a loop, yarn over again, but we pull through 2 loops on the hook, yarn over and pull through the last 2. So insert hook, pull up loop, yarn over through 2 loops, yarn over through 2 loops again, and that is the double crochet. Next up is the treble crochet. So with this one, you start by yarning over 2 times. So you wrap that yarn around your hook twice and then insert your hook. You pull up a loop. Now keep this nice and loose. Then you have 4 loops sitting on your hook. So yarn over and pull through 2. Yarn over again and pull through 2. Now to finish this, we yarn over for a 3rd time and then we pull through the last 2 loops on our hook. I'm going to show you this treble crochet a few more times. I'm using this light blue yarn now. I think it might be a little bit easier to see than the red. So this is a stitch that you probably aren't familiar with, especially if you're a beginner. It doesn't really come up a lot in beginner projects. The main thing here, you want to make sure you're not making that too tight, because then, see how I had some trouble getting my hook through? I made mine a little bit too tight there. So it does take some wiggling even if you do have it loose enough. So yarn over 2 times, insert your hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2 again, yarn over, pull through 2 again. So I'll demonstrate this stitch a few more times with a little more speed here. You can keep practicing along with me, or if you feel good about this one, then you can go ahead and move on to starting your heart. So now we'll go ahead and get started with making the heart. So we make it in 2 rounds. The first round is just a circle, and then in the second round we add the shape. So you start by making your slip knot. You can also start with a magic ring. I don't do that. I just don't really like magic rings. So step 1, you're going to chain 3. And then after you've done that, you are going to make 15 double crochets into that first chain. So all 15 of your double crochets will be in that first chain stitch that you made. Now if you're doing the magic ring, you would just make 15 double crochets into your magic ring. So now that I've finished my 15 double crochets, I'm just going to count to double check that I have the correct amount. Even with a number as low as 15, I lose count sometimes. And whenever we're counting here, that first chain that we did, that is not going to count as a stitch. So see those 2 chains? Those are not a stitch. So now we're going to pull that ring tight. And this is the same whether you used the magic ring method or just worked into that first chain like I did. And then you're just going to slip stitch into the top of your first double crochet. So make sure you're not going in those 2 chains. You want to make sure you're in the top of the double crochet stitch, the first one that you made. Now we're going to chain 2, and we're going to double crochet right into that same stitch that we slip stitched into. Just 1 double crochet there. Now moving into the next stitch, this is where our treble crochet comes in. We're going to do 4 treble crochets all into that same stitch. And there's 2. Remember not to make these too tight or you'll have trouble pulling your hook through. There's our 3rd one. And the 4th and final treble crochet all into that 1 stitch. Okay, now moving on to the next stitch here. In the very next one, you will make 2 double crochets into that stitch. So both of them go into the same stitch. Next up, we will make 1 half double crochet in each of the next 4 stitches. So just 1 half double crochet per stitch into each of the next 4. So there's 2, 3, and 4 half double crochets. Now we are at the bottom point of the heart. So we've made the side, sort of that upper lobe there. So if you look at the completed one, you can sort of see where we're going now to make the bottom point there. So in this one, it's double crochet, treble crochet, double crochet, all into the same stitch. Now keep your double crochets pretty loose here, maybe a little bit looser than you usually would, because you want them to be pretty close to the same height as the treble crochet, but not quite the same height so that we can get that nice point shape. But if you make your double crochets too tight, then it'll start to sort of pull down the treble crochet, which makes the point. Now we're just going to do it in reverse. So next 4 stitches, 1 half double crochet per stitch in each of the next 4. So there's number 2, there's number 3, and number 4. Now we're kind of mirroring the opposite side. So 2 double crochets into the next one. There's 1 and 2. And now the next stitch, if we look to the opposite side and grab the finished one here, we're just finishing up that other upper lobe there on the heart. So the next stitch will be our 4 treble crochets all in that 1 stitch. So there's treble crochet number 1. There's number 2. Number 3. And number 4. And then we are almost done with our heart now. So now in this last stitch right here, we will make 1 double crochet, and then we will chain 2, and now we will slip stitch back into the same stitch that we were working in with that double crochet. So make your slip stitch there, and now we're going to go ahead and fasten off. I had just a pretty short ball of yarn anyway. Normally, you would cut this with scissors, but since I don't have much yarn left on my ball, I'm just pulling it all the way through. And then you pull that tight. And now see how there's kind of like a little hole there in that stitch that we were working in. I'll show you how to cover up that hole with weaving in your ends. So first we're going to weave in the end from the middle, from where we started. So go ahead and thread your yarn needle. And for this one, pull it tight first, keep it nice and tight while you do this. And I'm just going to go kind of partially around this circle here. So I'm going to start by going all the same direction. That makes it a little bit easier to pull tight and to make sure it's not loosening as you're finishing up with weaving in this end. You can tie a little knot here if you'd like to. I usually don't, simply because people will sometimes like hang these in windows so you can see both sides of it, and I don't want there to be a knot on one side. The main thing with weaving in ends, you can do this in a completely random fashion, but you want to change direction a lot. See how I'm going back the way I came? I'm just going over some of the stitches that I've already gone under, and that's going to make my ends really secure. So I'm going to come out of this ring a little bit now, travel into the other part of the heart. And the key here is to just make sure that you are changing direction a lot. You're not just going all in one straight line. That'll keep your ends from popping out. That'll make sure they're really secure. So next I'll show you how to cover this little hole. So sometimes that'll happen, sometimes it does not happen, but sometimes there's just like a little gap sort of in between your stitches and you want to cover that up. So I'm going to come from the front and I'm going to go down kind of in front of that hole to sort of cinch in the top there a little bit, and then I'm going to flip back around to the back. So you don't want to pull too tight here because that will start to misshape your heart a little bit, but you want it secure, but you don't want to be like pulling it as tight as you can. So now I'm going up past that hole again, and then let's just turn it around to look, and perfect, that is all covered up. Everything looks really even and good to go. So just go ahead and finish weaving in this end as you usually would. Now, once you have your ends woven in, there's a couple of ways that you can kind of make your hearts the shape that you want. So this first method is called blocking. I'm just using some pins and like an old mailing envelope that I got a package in recently. They do sell blocking mats that are good for this purpose, but I don't block things very often, so I don't own one. You can also use like cardboard, pretty much anything you can push a pin into. And then once you pin it into the shape you want, then you just spray it with some water and then you let it dry. So this is a good method if you want like a nice crisp heart. I don't block my hearts for these garlands. I like them to have that sort of kind of curvy or whimsical sort of look. I don't want them to be flawless, so what I do instead, just to flatten them, they'll curl like that sometimes. I'll put like a book, like a heavy book, or I have like a random brick that I'll set on top of them, and that'll make it look nice and flat and keep it from curling as much. So now I'll show you how to actually get your hearts onto the garland. I usually use a white piece of yarn, but I couldn't find any, so I'm using this light blue just to show you. So I'm going to do 3 points across. So I'll do the side, middle, and side on the back of this heart. That helps it to keep its shape. So right there, and right there. So if you look here, if you go kind of like through the back of the stitch almost rather than going through the entire stitch, that will make your yarn not visible. So don't go through there, but go through the back. And it doesn't really matter exactly which stitch you end up using. I like in this general area, but it doesn't have to be any specific stitch. You can pretty much do whatever you want here. Now when you go through the middle, just flip it over and double check that it's not showing through. You don't want that contrasting color popping through visible in the front of your heart. So now we have our 2 points here. We're just going to go straight across and finish it up with a 3rd point on the side. Remember to go kind of through the back of the stitch rather than through the entire stitch. So that is all there is to it. You're not limited to just rainbow here. I've made these for Valentine's Day with different shades of pinks and reds. I made an asexual pride garland for a customer once. It turned out really, really cute. You can do pretty much anything you want to do with these. You don't even have to make them a garland. You can use them just as like an applique and pin them to a jacket or put them on a coffee cozy. Really anything you can think of once you have these little hearts. So anyway, thank you for watching and following along with me today. If you have any questions or suggestions or need clarification on anything, you can leave me a comment. I always read all my comments and respond to them, so I'll get back to you as quickly as I can. So thanks for being here today. Hope you have a good rest of your day.